episode 3 of Transfer Talk, and we've got a load of players to get stuck into today. I hope you're all having a really good week and weekend. There is a bit of stuff, there's a lot of players, and we'll try and bracket this off today in a slightly different way. So, with the rumour mill stuff, we get all the news and we hear all the links from Leeds United sources, or Leeds side sources, so aggregate sites to focus on. Leeds are Leeds out and out pages that are producing stories. So, what I've done today is I've tried to look at other clubs that have been linked with players that Leeds have been linked with to see who's more credible. So what we'll do is we'll go through the players today. We'll go through who they are, ages, key stats, type of player. Do Leeds really need them? Other linked clubs with those players, their most likely destination, and the credibility score for the sources as well. Because at this moment in time, a lot of this is speculation, and there's no point in pretending it's anything other than that. But we will try and cut through the noise and decide what's real and what's not real, or what's more real than that isn't real, because it's a lot of noise at a time. And again, when you look online or when you read the papers, you get the Leeds United perspective of people that are linking Leeds to these players. What we don't see are the other clubs and who their sources and their aggregate sites are linking to them. And we also don't see the more credible, maybe, journalists on those sides that are talking about players. So we'll try and do that. I've had a deeper look today, which is why it's later going out today. But we've had a bit more of a look. The players that we're going to cover off today are Nick Pope, Ousmane Diomande, Troy Parrott, Harry Wilson, Ayase Ueda, Natan, and Mohamed Amoura. We've got a couple of appendix ones to kind of bring you up to date on players that have been linked with Leeds and where they sit right now. And then on top of that, I did ask for people, if there's any questions you wanted answered in this, to stick them in the post section on YouTube, and people have done that, so I will try and get to, there's only 3 or 4, we'll box them off towards the end as well. Also, we are partnered with OK Jersey for World Cup shirts this summer, so if you want to get 8% off World Cup shirts, you can use the links down below in the description. Order a size up from your normal size if you are purchasing from them. And if you want to support this channel, the best way to do so is subscribe to the channel and hit a like on the video. And if the hype button's there, might not be, but if it is there, you can press that as well. So we'll start off right. The first one we want to talk about is the goalkeeper one, Nick Pope. Newcastle United goalkeeper, 34 years of age, 6'3" in height, and an English goalkeeper. The interesting thing with Nick Pope right now is Newcastle have just signed a new goalkeeper, and they're still expected to be the favourites to move for James Trafford this summer. So Nick Pope is likely on the move, and Leeds may need a goalkeeper. Cardarlo has obviously been offered a contract right now. We will see if that materialises into him signing it and staying at the club. So in the meantime, goalkeepers have been linked with Leeds. Nick Pope being one of them. Do Leeds need him is the first question. We have to take into consideration what Leeds are looking for in the market this summer. Short term, probably yeah, but he would be a short term fix at 34 years of age. He would be a short term fix for me. Leeds might be looking for somebody who can give them a bit more of a longer term spell at the club, and maybe even some sell on value in the future. In terms of credibility on this and where the stories and the links have come with Nick Pope, they're not overly credible. Sports Boom, which is more of an aggregated site than anything else, are the first ones to link Nick Pope with Leeds. The Sun have linked him as well, but the most likely destination and the other linked club with Nick Pope is newly promoted Ipswich Town. Ipswich apparently are Nick Pope's home club. That could be wrong, someone will correct me on that, but apparently it's his hometown club, and he is the favourite to move to Ipswich Town rather than anywhere else. Pope's a really decent goalkeeper, and I say really decent goalkeeper, he's had some really strong years. He's an international goalkeeper, was at one point. He had a bit of a wobble last year on a couple of occasions. All goalkeepers have a wobble at different times. But given the age that he's at, given what Leeds are looking for, and given, again, I think he's about £6 million they're looking for him, you would imagine Leeds will be looking for better value and maybe someone that can be a more established number one for the club for a longer period of time. Assuming, by the way, that Lucas Perry decides to leave the club this summer, or Leeds decide to move on from him, which is still not confirmed as being anything that will actually happen. The next one to talk about then is Ousmane Diomande. Diamande has been talked about so much this week. He's gone from being linked with Leeds to a potential talks taking place to agreeing personal terms verbally with Leeds United. So this one's a bit all over the place. The detail on this is he's a centre back. He's right-footed, which is important. 22 years of age, 6'3" in height, and has clocked up over 150 appearances for Sporting Lisbon. He is a very composed ball-playing centre back, good coming out with the ball, and is fairly physical as well. He's a very good centre back. Does he fit what Leeds need? We've got an abundance of right-sided centre-backs right now. We've got Joe Rodon, who was excellent this season. Yacob can do a job there. James Justin has deputised quite well there. And Sebastian Bornau is there at the club as well. We've got one left-sided centre-back in Pascal Strauch. So that you would imagine that's the priority. Now, as has been said, you don't have to have a left-footed centre-back to play left-sided centre-back. A right-footer can do that job. But in terms of passing lanes, in terms of playing out, ideally you want to have a left-footer out there for the angles of passes you're looking for. They are very rare, and they are a hot commodity in football right now. So there is that caveat. The other side to it as well, or the flip side to this, is there could be a possibility in the market here. I think we said this during the week as well. Leeds went after Strand Larsen in January, and at the time they said probably wasn't necessarily what they wanted to do right there and then, but there was an opportunity in the market to get a player that they would see as being a longer term asset for the club, and again, maybe some sell on value in the future. At 22 years of age, this could be a possible market opportunity for Leeds with Diamande. The flip side to that, though, is if Leeds were to get relegated in the meantime, given the amount of money he's likely to cost, disaster. Could be an absolute disaster in that situation. His fee is very high. He has got a contract at Lisbon until 2030. He does have a release clause in his contract, £69 million release clause. They're rumoured to be willing to accept anything above £43 million for him. That would make him a Leeds United transfer record by a decent margin as well. And the sources on this probably aren't brilliant. There's one or two are decent, but not amazing. This originated from Team Talk, which we know the deal on that. That was its starting point, or its genesis. It was then picked up by Abola in Portugal, who do have a very good track record, it should be said. They did get the hit a massive transfer story to Leeds pretty wrong, at least right now, unless that ends up being something that comes out of the woodwork before the season starts. It was also picked up by, well, not picked up, it was mentioned by Graham Smith in the Yorkshire Evening Post, but Graham didn't confirm it or deny it, dismiss it either. So right now it's an interesting looking one. You could see why Leeds would move for him, but that transfer fee is massive. Absolutely massive. So from a credibility perspective, in terms of Leeds being interested in the player, probably about a 6.5 out of 10. And then you get to the other stories from the other clubs. The interested clubs in him, Chelsea, Arsenal, Manchester United, Newcastle, and Crystal Palace are all said to be interested in him. And when you look at the credibility of the sources on those sides, talking about him, the most likely destination seems to be an Arsenal or a Chelsea. There's a lot of talk on their ends that one of those two will just pay the release clause and get him straight away, which feels like a very Chelsea thing to do. So if they were to get into that, I mean, that's most of your transfer budget at 69 million quid. It does feel like a very Chelsea style move. Might be a kind of player that Xavi Alonso wants to have there next season. They're going to back him in the summer transfer market, likely sell players as well. But yeah, it's an interesting one. Would you take him? You would, absolutely. Is it a huge part of your budget for a part of the pitch? You don't really need someone in right now. If there was more money there than there's rumored to be there, yeah. Outside of that, I think there's more important areas Leeds need to focus on. But you would take him if he was available. Wait and see. We move on. Right, other end of the pitch now. Troy Parrott, who has been continuously linked with Leeds since last summer, I think. 24-year-old Irish striker, currently playing at AZ Alkmaar, and had a fantastic season over there. Huge amount of goals. Great year for Ireland as well. As I say, linked regularly with Leeds. He can very easily work in a 3-5-2-1 system that Leeds play, one off the two strikers, or with a two up front. As I said, bag load of goals this season. He is expected to leave Alkmaar this summer. All the talk is that this is the right time for him to move. Spurs have been mentioned of bringing him back where he started his career. He would have some Premier League experience before. As I say, very good on the Irish side this year as well. Got some very big goals. Loves a hat-trick, as you can see from his pictures, 4 and 3 goals. He does love a picture like that. Transfer fee on this one, about 20 to 30 million pounds. So again, a lot of money. Would he be a starter if he was to come in for Leeds? He's not exactly the Jurgen Strand Larsen 6 foot plus bracket that Leeds have looked at last January. But then Leeds have looked at other profiles of strikers as well. If Joe Pirro was to move, you could possibly see Troy Parrott being a slightly upgraded version of him in that situation at 24 years of age. Has got time on his hands to continue to develop as well. The sources, again, not great on this. Mick Brown from Football Insider. And as I've said before, if Football Insider wrote a story saying it was sunny outside, I'd bring an umbrella and a jacket. I don't trust them. They don't get an awful lot right. They also had that story about Kieran Trippier trying to cancel his move at Wolves, because of the sacking of Rob Edwards. And the player himself has dismissed this as absolute nonsense. Nothing in it, not true at all. So there's that. Yorkshire Evening Post had it as part of their rumour mill section, but not that came from them directly. Credibility on this, probably a 3.5 out of 10. Been linked an awful lot with Leeds. Spurs interested in. He might end up staying at Alkmaar. AC Milan had a sniff as well. So you could see him going to Italy. I could definitely see him working in Italy. So there is that. Let's move on to talk about Harry Wilson, which is one that's far more credible and far more interesting. And it continues to be talked about and continues to keep gathering some pace. Attacking midfielder, free agent, 29 years of age, has the Welsh connection, is 5'9" in height, and is a left-footed right-sided attacker. Good at set pieces, likes to cut inside, can link the play, has goals and assists in his locker, would cost you nothing except wages. Does he fit what Leeds are looking for? Like a glove. He would be a perfect fit for what Leeds are looking for in that attacking third, and he fits the 49ers recruitment bracket outside of not being over 6 foot. He's 5'9". He's 5'10". He's not far off the 6 foot bracket, and he's exactly what they would go for. Value in the market and the player that can add something to what they've got. Now, some people have said Leeds are not looking for wingers. He's not much of a winger anymore. He definitely plays more inside than he does wide, but he has definitely would benefit from being behind a Dominic Calvert-Lewin. You could definitely see Okafor on one side and Wilson on the other side tucked in behind him. The sources on this, Yorkshire Evening Post and The Athletic, have both confirmed Leeds' interest in this. We have heard that Leeds have put a contract offer in front of him. So have Fulham and so have Aston Villa. Credibility-wise on this, you're looking at an 8 or a 9 out of 10. This is probably the one story floating around right now that has got legs to it. The most likely destination. So the clubs that were linked with him, Fulham think they'll keep him. Aston Villa seem very confident of getting him. And on their side of aggregate sites, fan forums, there is a lot of confidence there that they would get him. They got Champions League football to offer him. It will come down to, will he play? What will his minutes be like? Is he a Unai Emery type of player? From a working perspective, I'd say, yeah, he is. But Leeds feel confident on this, and it also, again, says Leeds are very confident of getting it done. So it's kind of a 50-50. It will come down to a decision of the player, obviously. But as I said before, it's very quiet outside of the initial rumours about him. You could see him popping up in a Leeds shirt or an announcement on Monday when the window opens of Leeds have agreed terms of a deal with Harry Wilson, who will join the club at the end of June once his contract expires. You could see something like that. You just be worried about this. He could definitely go elsewhere. We're not in control of this transfer, but if they've got a decent few quid on wages to put in front of him, why not? Why not? 10 goals a season, maybe you'll get from him. So, good age as well. Got his best years ahead of the next 3 years specifically. Could be a very, very important player. But yeah, that is the one for me to keep an eye on right now. The next one is Ayase Ueda, or Ueda. When I checked pronunciations, they said it was Ueda. FIFA call him Ueda. Other people have called him different versions of this, but Ayase Ueda, Feyenoord striker, 27 years of age, Japanese international at the World Cup right now with Japan. Has been covered an awful lot by us here over the last 5 or so months. Got a bag load of goals for Feyenoord in the area division in the Netherlands last season. Is a box striker, a poacher, has very, very, very good movement in the penalty area. Busy striker, very, very nippy within a few yards, and a good striker of the ball as well. So, yeah, there's a lot of talk that he'll leave Feyenoord this summer. I think Robin van Persie was his manager before he was sacked, and he was saying if he is going to move to a bigger league, likely this summer is going to be the one. He's got a connection with Tanaka. Transfer fee for him is anything around £30 million, which is a lot of money. The sources, again, on this, not great. Team Chalk, Sports Boom, you're getting a 4 out of 10 in terms of that. The most likely destinations from him, looking online, digging around, and trying to see what the more credible sources on this are. Everton seems to be very, very, very strongly linked with him from far more credible sources. Spurs are mentioned as interested in him as well. And Leeds, again, are coming from Team Talk and Sports Boom. So if I was to put money on him going anywhere, I'd say it's probably Everton, if he goes anywhere at all. Leeds at the moment, but it's a very Leeds thing to say. It's interest right now. Leeds are not going to confirm anything publicly until it's done. So there is that factor for it. But it's gone quiet in terms of anything major on Ayase Ueda. If you were an Everton fan, you'll be reading up on how often he's been mentioned with a move to you. So there is that. Let's move on. And this is the really, really interesting one for me. Natan from Real Betis, 25-year-old centre back, Brazilian. Everyone get excited about that one. Left-footed centre half. This is an interesting one. He is a ball-playing left-hand sided centre half. He fits Daniel Farke's systems like a glove. He is definitely the kind of player that he would like. Similar fit to Pascal Struijk. He's slightly smaller in terms of height and stature than Pascal Struijk, but can be very physical as well, as a lot of Brazilian players, especially defenders, can be. The fee on this is quite high. So, and there's a funny element to this as well. They want 47 million euro for him. That's about 42.5, 43 million pounds, maybe even a bit less than that again. They signed him from Napoli last year for 9 million euro. So you could have got him on a much cut price deal last summer. And I'm not even sure if we were mentioned. I think we were mentioned with him last summer. I don't want to commit to that, but I think we may have been mentioned with him last summer as well. 9 million euro. Sources on this aren't bad. ABC Sevilla been mentioned with it. That came via Sport Witness, which is an aggregate site that picked up that story. He has been linked with Leeds since January. There were reports in January that Leeds were having a look at him around the same time, well, March time when the Krejci story came out, similar to Natan. And there is some talk on fan forums, the ITK's world, that Leeds are confident of getting a deal done. He's expensive. He's very, very expensive. He is, from a credibility perspective, you're probably looking at about a 6 out of 10 here. Slightly stronger than others. The price is the one that looks very high. He'd be a record signing for the club again. It does feel like Leeds are going to break the transfer record this summer if they are bringing in quality over quantity. The most likely destination won't be great news to everybody. It's likely to be Barcelona. They made a move for him in January. They had a £27 million offer rejected. I think it was a loan with an obligation to purchase with add-on, a very Barcelona-style transfer. They must have the deepest pockets in the sofa in the world to be digging down every year and finding this cash from, and apparently they haven't got anything. There's that West Ham United have been mentioned as having interest in him as well. But it feels like Leeds and West Ham are likely being linked in terms of trying to drum up interest in him. But if Barcelona get involved in this, he's expected to head that direction. So if they could find more than 27 million, could you go between 27 and 47? Could you get him for 35? Good age, 25 years of age. Not the most towering of centre halves, but very good footballing centre back. So yeah, that's an interesting one for me to keep an eye on, because it does tick left-footed, centre-back, ball playing, works in a 3, works in a 2. There's a lot there. We'll see. Let's talk about Mohamed Amoura. So linked again at the end of last week, or this week, and mentioned in January, he's at Wolfsburg. He's an attacker, and he's 25 years of age, 5'10", left-footed, can operate on the right-hand side, coming in onto his left, can also play on the left-hand side and be more direct. He is a very direct, very quick attacker. Now, he's labelled as a striker, but the bulk of his time seems to be playing behind the striker. So he is in that Okafor, Wilson, Dan Jamesy type model, more central than a Dan James. Very explosive player as well, quite exciting. And as I say, can play anywhere across the traditional front 3. He's at the World Cup right now with Algeria, so if you want to keep an eye on him, that's the place to watch him. There was an issue with him at Wolfsburg early this year about his loyalty was being called out, but I think it was by the chairman or their owner, because he was looking for a move away from the club. Now, things didn't go well at Wolfsburg last season. He might have been looking for a move because World Cup were coming up. But they got relegated from the Bundesliga. They lost out to Daniel Farke's former side, Paderborn, in the playoff. And that could be where that came from. For me, in terms of would he fit Leeds? Yeah, because he could definitely be a backup option if they can't get Harry Wilson. He'd cost slightly more money than that, but about £26 million. Can play on the right-hand side, coming onto his left foot. As I say, very busy player. Now, the fee is interesting. 26 million is what they wanted in January. Leeds were linked to him in January, loosely, not overly credibly, but linked with him in January. There's talk that Leeds will go again for him. That fee will likely come down because they've been relegated from the Bundesliga, and their negotiating power is not as strong as it probably was in January. So credibility-wise, given where it's come from, it came from Sebastian Vidal and a French journalist called Nabil Gelid. I would say about a 4 out of 10 on that one. Interesting player. Very interesting player. Does tick some of the boxes what Leeds want from an attacking perspective. And that's the interesting part, because a lot of the rumours just link players with Leeds. We know that Leeds are looking for certain profiles of players this summer. And he ticks some of those boxes. So the likes of himself and Natan fit what Leeds are looking for more. And that could be just pot luck that they've managed to connect those dots. Or there could be something more in it. The appendix stuff to talk about on this one now. So there's a few more bits really quickly. So Tanner Testament, it's gone deathly quiet. That seems to have gone away completely. Leeds don't look like they're going to make any moves for any central midfielders unless they lose somebody, which doesn't look likely right now. That can change. Geertruida is the interesting one. Sunderland's option to buy him expired on Friday. Now, they are still said to be in negotiations with him and with Red Bull about a move. Leeds has still been mentioned as being interested. Again, you won't get any more than that at this moment in time from a Leeds link. And Aston Villa are also said to be interested in him. So that's probably one worth keeping in mind. He's not a natural left-footed defender, but he can play on both sides like James Justin and gives you cover and depth there. But not a bespoke left footer. Or left fullback, I should say. So there is that. So a couple of the questions that came in that I asked if there was anything you wanted us to cover today, and there's a few that came in. Laura was asking about the striker situation and if and when Pirro was to leave, would Leeds be looking for a Strand Larsen type player to compete with Mecha and DCL, because Leeds were linked with Strand Larsen in January and Muniz last summer. Muniz won. It was Muniz or DCL as far as I'm aware last summer. So when Muniz didn't happen, we got DCL. That worked out quite well, looking at both players' seasons. The Strand Larsen one's interesting. I would imagine Leeds are still interested in a 6 foot+ striker, and that's because the injury profiles of DCL and Mecha, yes, they both had very good seasons last year, but there is still that kink in the armour that if they were to pick up an injury again next season, whatever season we're going into, would you be leaving yourself short with that profile of striker? Maybe they want somebody else in there, maybe a bit younger. There is that. But I would expect another profile of striker as well. Books is saying, pity about Aleš Begovic, who has now signed for Leverkusen. He seemed exciting. He did. He looked very decent, but he has signed for Bayer Leverkusen, so you can scratch him off your bingo card. And Sven has also been asking, would like to hear more about the January transfer window links, the likes of Spertjan and Schmid, and what would happen with, say, James Justin, or players that were relegated from sides this season will be available. In terms of clubs that were relegated and players that could see Leeds going for, Tati Castellanos is one that I like. Watched an awful lot of them. Does like to shoot, which we don't do an awful lot of. Can pull something out of nothing. I like his work rate. I like his aggression, but that's a personal preference more than anything Leeds would necessarily go for. But I think you could get decent value there. The interesting thing about the relegated sides is they don't appear to be cutting their cloth right now. They all appear to be putting more money in right now, which from the SCR perspective next season will be very, very interesting. But they all seem to be signing players rather than letting anyone move at this moment in time. The other one you've asked about, then Spertjan and Schmid. Schmid's interesting because Schmid would fit that number 10 box that Leeds are probably looking for. Plays in Germany. We know Leeds like the German market. Daniel Farke likes that market as well. You could definitely see him fitting in. Werder Bremen had a weird year this year. And we know that from Isaac Schmidt and from Max Verber over there. In terms of what his output was like this year, I mean, he's a really busy number 10. Like, he gets around the pitch. I think he played, 34, 35 games this season for Werder Bremen. He got 8 assists and he had 4 goals as well this season. So decent G&A for a side that were in the bottom half of the Bundesliga. I need to check his age here real quick. He's 26 years of age. So, again, good age for Leeds to bring in and would fit that mid-20s model that Leeds like to look at. Has got time. Best years ahead of him. Will be an interesting one. Right footer. So he wouldn't be in those 2 behind the 1 positions. He'd be as an out-and-out 10, which I still think Leeds are looking for. There's that one. Spertjan, I'd love him. His issue is more him, I think, than anything else, and the Russian league situation. Doesn't have an agent. Doesn't want to have an agent. That seems to cause the issue in getting him a move. He is still at Krasnodar. I'd love him. Anyone that's seen him play can see him playing as a 6 and 8 or 10 and being very good in all 3. Very, very good. Absolute assist nutcase. We should actually have a look at his numbers this year. I'll try and pull them up real quick. So Edward Spertjan, this season, he played, I'll get his league games. Played 30 games in the Russian Premier League. 16 assists and 13 goals. Now, the Russian Premier League is not what it used to be, but still, that's a lot. I'd love him. I don't see it happening. I don't. And then also somebody was asking, Siege Rabbit was asking about Crescencio Somerville. I don't think that's a runner. I did see him linked with AC Milan this week. I think there was people at Leeds were relatively happy to see Chris Somerville go. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but that's what was apparently was rumoured. So I don't think you'll see Leeds move for Crescencio Somerville. Also, I don't know where he'd fit, and the price would be high. So I don't know. Oh, by the way, those asking on Jorginho Reuter's transfer from Leeds and how much Brighton and Hove Albion owe Leeds. As far as I'm aware, when there's debate here whether this is true or not, but as far as I've seen from looking it up, when the release clause was activated, the bulk of the release clause, if not all of it, has to be paid. So Leeds would have got a chunk of money in then. That would have been in last year's accounts. I haven't got them to hand to look at, but I believe we're not owed any money, or if we are owed money, it's very, very little. That the bulk of it was paid because of the release clause was activated. And that's the way that has to be. And if I remember correctly, and there's gaps in my memory on this, it was Archie and Gio who had their release clauses activated. And I believe both of those fees were what Leeds needed in terms of balancing the books that year. So There is that. Anyway, that'll be it for me, folks. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Let me know what you think of all of these. Monday morning, the transfer window opens proper. We will see if anything starts to materialise, and we'll hear about some contracts. We'll keep an eye on Carl Darlow and Pascal Strokes as well. All quiet on them right now. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll talk to you soon. See you later.